All right, so good afternoon, everyone. I am Anto Budiardjo. Welcome to Monday Live. This is something that we do every Monday afternoon as we try and figure out what the future holds for smarter buildings. So it's really good to have you with us. In case you're wondering who we are, our profiles are listed on mondaylive.org, so head over there. And just to point out, the views expressed here are personal, not of any company or organization. So keep that in mind. And let's make the Zoom chat sort of live today for this conversation. It always makes it much better for all of us. And if you want anything that's on this slide deck, it's also available on mondaylive.org. So this being June of 2026, our theme for this month is readiness, after having spent a couple of months talking about governance and basics. So we're trying to get ready for the future, whatever that is. And so our agenda for today, normal news and chit chats, find out what's going on in the industry. Then we really want to talk about readiness for AI native. That's why we've been sort of chit-chatting about what being native means, which I think will be an interesting conversation today. So before all of that, I'm going to hand it over to Ken Sinclair for some news from automated buildings. Over to you, Ken.
Thanks, Anto. You missed a fun meeting on Wicked Wednesday where we kind of decide what we're going to do for Monday Live. And we started pushing around the idea of what do we call what it is we're doing, more as a marketing term than potentially a technical term. But this AI native sort of leaped out, and lo and behold, we almost all agreed on it, which was kind of an amazing feat in itself. But what we've done is, since Wednesday, is there's been a lot of articles written, and the native seems to slip into the commentary quite nicely, and it does at least explain, or at least flag it as something different and something beyond just having AI poke at our data. Kelly's, actually, I guess it's under the automated buildings tag now, is we basically have pulled together what articles have been written that talk about native, and we talk about how those important pieces. So if you click on that, that's what you'll see. The one below that is the readiness gap, what the PAE living building taught us about live data. That was the summary of last week's Monday Live. We have our new contributing editor, Building Disruptive. She caused me a lot of trouble because I had to redefine, because the words building and disruptive, so thought I was scamming some of these sites. So I actually had to do some extra security things to get her posts out. So those are strong words, but I think they're the right words. But it is interesting that you do get flagged on some of those kinds of words. The next is another new contributing editor, and that's Daniel Stonecipher, and he is talking, it's all about trust, and I believe that's true. I think more than anything, we've got all these technologies, all these changes coming, and we really just have to trust the people that we have been traditionally trusting, and read what they have to say and see how they're seeing these changes coming out, and express our concerns and changes as this is all going. But it's all based on trust. And then Kimon wrote this article, The Case for AI Native Registries, Operational Content and Live Building Intelligence. Click on that, you'll see that he's very much saying that the data has to be current, has to be live. It can't be statistical data that we're trying to make decisions on now, because AI is expecting now data, and the changes that are required there. I kind of took the cloud native, or not the cloud native, but the AI native a little further, And I started just thinking a little bit about it, and what happened because of something I was doing where I was working on an AI drawing and somebody else was working on an AI drawing, and we were working on the same platform. We were actually able to alter each other's drawings by just altering words to the drawing. And it was kind of an interesting collaboration. But what it kind of led me to believe is there's a whole integration level above what we've been traditionally doing. So I cobbled together this information integration and interoperability shift from deterministic data mapping problems to cognitive, can't say that word, cognitive reasoning problems. So it's more that it takes it from a a statistical database, and it starts to allow AI to manipulate it better. The other
You
one,
you were
bottom,
you were reaching for the word cognitive, right?
cognitive, right?
Yeah. Okay.
You get old and you can't talk anymore.
Indeed.
Anyway, back in the one below that too is interesting because that's someone who's not been in our circle, and they're writing similar stuff, data readiness, and they've got some interesting ideas in their posts. So I brought that in. The other one is the town hall at C4SB, which I'm sure Rick will give us the details on, but they've had their second meeting, which I was part of. So he'll explain that. And back to you, Anto.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken. Over to you, Rick, for an update from C4SB.
Cool. And no changes to the slide this week, but I do want to echo what Ken is describing in terms of our conversations around AI native, and and the term AI native might end up being a really good marketing attention getter, but AI native is actually a technology advancement, and we're going to talk about that, and there will be some reading material that won't be required. Don't worry, there will be no test, but for people who are interested in what does AI native mean in terms of the evolution of technology and how the specific technology advancements are affecting where we're, what we're doing with C4SB, we're going to spend some time on talking about the specific technology things that are behind this term AI native. But yeah, we did have, I'll set that aside for a second. We did have another town hall on Thursday, and it was a nice, successful town hall where we introduced the working group that is the Digital Building Profiles Working Group. And David Wilts did a great introduction and reveal of Digital Building Profiles Working Group. I think we're still looking for what the date of those meetings are going to be and exactly how that's going to be, but stand by for news on that. And then Pete also kind of gave a little bit of Pete Scanlon gave a positioning of how digital building profiles kind of fits into a bigger industry of condition assessment and building assessment, and how we're kind of positioning digital building profiles as a complement to the existing conditional assessment and capital planning agenda that a lot of large enterprises and entities have. So it was a really good town hall. I had a little bit of time to talk about a few of the other working groups as well, and I think that's going to be a good cadence for having people, people will be able to come in and ask questions about what's happening with C4SB. Also do want to remind people that every Friday there is the Semantic Buildings Working Group call. And this past Friday, if you want to go get the recording of it, I thought it was a fantastic presentation by a company that is actually using 223 and using semantics, brick and rec and haystack, using all that to advance the cause of building controls, specifically around 231 sequences that have been something that's been exciting for us to be thinking about, and to hear that there's a company in it using 223 and 231, and the acronym soup of all that was a great presentation. Again, I encourage people to go check out the recording of that.
What's that, man?
You also have this.
We also are going to be we're trying to drop this into the chat of the town hall, but this 2-pager, which is the overview, the current overview of the working groups and the C4SB agenda, that 2-pager, maybe we will yet drop it into the chat here of Monday Live, but we will start to get that distributed for folks to be able to see what the process is for membership. And if you've got some comments on any of the working group descriptions, please let us know.
Okay, thank you very much. So moving on. So I was away last week. I was sort of half on Monday Live because I was in Europe, so it was late in the evening. And I was away in Geneva, Switzerland, which is where this picture is taken. And this is me out the back there, just to prove I was there. I was there because I was invited by ITU. ITU is the standards agency of the United Nations. So they are one of the half a dozen large global standards organization. They work mostly in the communications and telecommunications arena. And the reason why they invited me is that they are working on, guess what? Trust and trustworthiness and governance of network systems, not just IoT and OT stuff, but for everything. So this group is a specific group that's focused on cybersecurity, and they are they've sort of noticed that AI is coming along and taking over a lot of the conversations, and they need to think about how to secure and make AI, as well as all of the other systems that exist in the world, trustworthy and governable. So that's the conversation that they were having, and I was there really as an observer, and it's obviously connected to some of the stuff that I've been doing that some of you may be aware of. I'm just bringing this up because over the next few weeks and months, I'll hopefully give you updates of what this group is doing in that pursuit of trying to figure this out. So that's news from my end. Before we move on, anything else from anyone, or any questions or anything? Hey, Jim.
Hey, Anto.
I could bring up, oh, sorry, Jim, you had something? No. Can I bring up something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I mentioned the other day to the other group meeting, but I had a meeting with BuildingSMART International, who has a draft white paper on the intersection with BIM and building automation systems and sensors. They're coming from the building side and they're getting ready to publish it. It's a limited distribution for comment from them, but it's basically describing what we've been talking about here for a long time, including with a lot of the C4SB content. So it's really interesting that these worlds are starting to converge, I guess. And the more that we can do this cross-connecting so we don't get these new silos, the better. So anyway, there'll be more coming on that.
Okay, great. So let us move on then. So readiness, this is what we talked about last week. And now we're sort of on to readiness for AI native, or to be AI native is probably a better way to say it. And I wasn't on the planning call on Wednesday because I was asleep on the other side of the Atlantic. So I'm going to sort of mainly hand it over to the group to actually bring up what was the idea about, what's the thread of this conversation. Who wants to start this? Anno?
Yeah, I kick off if you like. So
Perfect.
we were talking about obviously the advent of AI technologies, and we were looking at the separation, and this actually stemmed from, and I can't remember who promoted it, the article by Vint Cerf from the founder of the internet, of course, and he did a great article, which we should drop the link in. I'll find that in a minute. That talked about the progression of technology, along the path, and he coined a term, basically AI native applications, which is a different space to where, if you go out and look at a lot of the applications out there and a lot of folks who are doing AI in their applications, they are basically doing the sort of we've gone through several phases of AI addition to existing applications. The early ones were simple chatbot extensions to the existing applications, right? And we talked about some examples there that, they have complicated applications, and the first area that they found AI to be useful was by adding a chatbot to their dashboard to make it easier to use their dashboard, right? So the product was still very dashboard centric, complex centric application, which they recognized, but then they used AI to help you with the application itself. So you could ask, the dashboard questions, you could ask what to fill in, where you needed help filling in the text boxes and all that sort of stuff. And that was what I would call, the first sort of advent of the use of AI. I did have a fun anecdote. I can't remember, someone posted on Reddit that one of the fast food restaurants, I won't name who, they used a chatbot to help you, order to-go food from their menu, from their application, from their to-go application. But a developer found out that their chatbot was just using open-ended Claude or Gemini as the back end, and he found that he could actually ask the chatbot to build him all sorts of interesting applications and using the free Claude, and because they never put any guardrails around it, and it quite happily created all his applications that he was doing within the chatbot of the fast food application. And the fun part was, at the end of it, it said, "Would you like a burrito with that too?" At the end. But that was kind of first generation stuff. And then, of course, what we find next kind of generation is folks who've got existing complex platforms, big databases in the back, a lot of infrastructure, a lot of data acquisition infrastructure. And they were basically now adding AI on top of their existing infrastructure. So they're not rejigging their infrastructure. They're just, taking the LLM model and just putting it on top of what they already have and trying to get some more depth and more understanding of it. And now you've got, of course, the next generation of applications, which what Vint's alluding to, which they call AI native applications, where people are architecting applications from an AI perspective to begin with. Now, we also have the term AI ready, right? In that, how can you make your applications AI ready? And if you go down that path, the chatbot interface is not truly AI ready per se. They were internally focused AI tools. The people who are putting AI layers on top of their existing infrastructure could make it AI ready, meaning they take their existing infrastructure and then they're just adding AI layer on top of that, and they would be AI ready. But those who, of course, who are making AI native applications, they are also doing AI, will be AI ready out of the box, right, as a result. So we kind of focused in on that. And again, the article, if you get the chance, I think it was posted there. Thank you, Anto.
There's
There's actually two that's been posted, and they're both correct because it's actually a series of articles that he wrote, and the one that I posted is the third one, and the one that Rick posted is the second one. But they're on the same trajectory. In fact, Rick, you didn't post it to everyone, so
did I not?
can't see it.
Yeah, he just did host and panelist, Rick. So yeah, it's a great article. Have a read of it, what the definition of AI native. And the interesting thing about that was, if everyone remembers, like only a few months ago, right, there was a sudden That's sudden awareness unmined in the marketplace that complex applications like Salesforce and several others could potentially be replaced by AI native built applications, off the ground using Claude and everything overnight to basically, displace those platforms. It was short-lived, right? Everyone realized that, well, it's not as easy as you think it is to build a AI native replacement for Salesforce overnight. There's a lot of functionality built into those sort of platforms. So thinking you can repeat that overnight, but that was an example of the market reacting to AI native type capabilities, right? That your application could be replaced tomorrow with some AI tools and become AI native as a result. So we focused in on that, and we focused in on AI native as a term, and we kind of challenged each other to test it out in the marketplace, see what sort of resonance that we got in our space, specifically in our marketplace. And you can see the examples even in our space, right? Again, you've seen applications in our world that started off with simple chatbots that are there just to basically help you fill in the details for the application that exists. There are people who've built AI layers on top of their existing platform to extend the functionality, and then there are new folks who are popping up who are building AI native applications overnight, and basically replacing even simple things like work order systems, for argument's sakes, right? That people have been working on or have developed over the years. Hence the term AI native. So we thought it was a good term to adopt in our space. And it helps you kind of differentiate because it's a complex world, right? People are coming at you all day long and saying, I've got this cool AI tool. Look at all this magic. Okay, where does it fit in that spectrum?
Yeah, and that's the question that I had, is that what stops anyone from, if it is a marketing tool term, what stops someone from saying I'm AI native if all I've done is really just put a band-aid or AI thing over my product?
Absolutely nothing stops them from saying it, but what will sooner or later stop them is that people are going to actually understand what the definition of AI native actually really means. And that's where the link, and I do think that reading the second link that I finally did post to everybody and understanding the evolution of technology, where we've gone from to IP native to cloud native computing, which most people think of cloud as cloud native storage, which is actually pretty boring. Cloud native computing is different than cloud native storage, and it steps through it in here. And then to AI native, it's fairly well articulated by what Vint puts out there. Now, people can debate with Vint Cerf what the requirements are for AI native, and feel free. But it's fairly well stated what it is. Now, people can use it as a marketing term, but there is a yardstick. There is a sort of a list of what it means to be an AI native. It didn't come out of marketing, it came out of tech, which is cool.
Well, there was another impetus for the name. Ken actually brought up a good point last week that we don't have a single word that we can describe what we're doing, whether it's technical or not. If we keep on talking about knowledge graphs and RDF, most people that don't understand it glaze over, but being able to have a single term that says this is what it is, then the validation of is it AI native or not, obviously need all the technologies in the background, but it's like whatever saying Intel Inside or whatever. It's a shorthand way of describing what we're doing. And that, yes, there's a lot of other stuff in the background, and there's even validation methods to say, are you really just handing me just a box of stuff, or is this really AI native and ready to be used as a knowledge graph, to be able to query, to be able to connect, and all that kind of stuff?
And Zara brings up a good point in the chat, right? I mean, people have false claims about everything, that's normal for the market, right? So that, of course, creates opportunities for those who do know what they're talking about and can help people separate and identify and, get to the nuts and bolts. And I think the other one we talked about too, Rick, was, and Kimon, was the whole PAE exercise. I think, how you guys tackled that project, which I think was insightful to us as well, at least to me, on those systems that you picked to start with versus those ones that you came back to later on, type of approach.
Yeah, well, that was actually if you claim it is, then you have to show that it is. You can't just say you're AI native and then say, just trust me. But if you have the ability to connect and do things with it and extend it, then yeah, it becomes real pretty quickly. There's a lot of theory that could go on for years talking. In fact, with BuildingSMART and whatever, I've involved with a long time, but it takes a long time to develop standards and to talk about them. Yes, that's important. But as soon as you start using it, it becomes real. Otherwise, it's just talk.
So, Kimon, just listening to all this, because I wasn't able to participate last week, we're accustomed, to having compliance organizations that ensure that our hardware products are safe from an electrical standpoint, and then our communications, particularly around BACnet, are compliant with the BTL standard. Given that AI is, going to be anywhere and everywhere, right? Are we going to need effectively a compliance organization that can test products against a AI native standard of sorts, so that these fundamental capabilities are looked for and tested and rated to some degree, if necessary, so that people have confidence that when manufacturers say, I've got my product is AI native, it's gone through some kind of a review. And I think frankly, I think this would be a good thing, not a bad thing.
Yeah, I agree. It's a trust thing. How do you trust that? Yeah.
Is that along the lines of Asimov's 3 rules with 3 laws of robots, right?
Yeah.
Well, yes, the cool thing is that at like PAE, we didn't invent AI native when we started looking into PAE. We looked to ASHRAE, and we looked to NIST. We looked to what was happening in the rest of the Linux Foundation relative to guidance on what technologies to deploy. Now, the cool thing is that what Paris 2 is doing with the semantic buildings work, and 223 specifically, along with BRIC and REC, those are cloud native. Those are, if not fully cloud native compliant, they are cloud native building blocks. And so by adopting 223, and also everything that Joel Bender's doing with 223, 231, and with BACnet for RDF, those are all moves towards being AI native. So this is not outside of the realm of ASHRAE, outside of the realm of BACnet. This is inside. These are what we're demonstrating at PAE is a path to AI native that was, again, we were able to just say, oh, well, let's use 223 because it just became a standard of ASHRAE. And it does have a validation tool for if you are using 223 correctly. Now, I'm honestly not sure if BRIC and REC have that same validation capability as standardized, but I believe they do, right? Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
So if somebody says that they are AI native, there's already a few things you can do to say, are you complying with 223 or BRIC or REC, or are you RDF are you RDF compatible? So there's, and this isn't just us, it's just not the building industry either. This is what's happening in the world of technology at large. So what's happening?
But Rick, are you suggesting that someone like BTL could evolve their testing paradigm to include these things?
I believe that what Paris 2 and what Joel Bender, what they've been talking about relative to advancing the standard of 223 and adding this BACnet RDF to the standard does have some sort of validation component to what they've done with their moving it to a standard. So I compliance is not my area of specialty. Do I have to say that out loud?
No, that's fine. I'm just saying that we're opening up Pandora's box here in a way. Okay, right? And in many respects, AI is look at the story that Anno just talked about the quick serve restaurant. There's so much that's going to be happening here, and if I think our industry would benefit if there was some label, if you will, UL, BTL, whichever, that could be attached to the suppliers of products that portend to be AI native, that would be an independent voice on this and allow people a very simple step to take. As a manufacturer, we submit our products. We're used to it. We know how to do it. And now there's no argument. There's no interpretation. You're not depending on a particular consultant to figure out whether it's really native or not.
So let me chime in for a second, different viewpoint maybe. So I loaded that article that you sent the link on, Rick, into AI, and then asked it, given this article, how would you define whether something is AI native or not?
Right.
And its primary factor is, or test is, if you remove the AI component from this application or this system, would the system remain the same, or would it functionally be changed or not work at all without the AI? If the answer is without the AI, different aspects of the AI that are included, it does not function properly, then it's past the first smell test, so to speak.
But that did come from an AI protecting its domain.
Yeah, don't need humans there.
But it says the entire, if the answer is no, the entire operating model collapses because agents are central to decision making,
Right.
execution, then it is AI native.
Right. That's smart though.
Yeah.
There's
a bunch of details in here. It talks about RDF graphs and ASHRAE standards and C4SB, because I've trained it about knowing what C4SB is. So it does consider those factors as part of an overall solution, but just looking at it at the higher level from the article, if like my platform functions just fine without AI, even though I now have an AI layer on it, that does not make my platform AI native, right?
So to your question, Steve, is there a way to certify something as AI native?
Right.
I'm not sure there is. I think that's way beyond what's possible. I think it's possible to certify certain aspects, such as 223 and knowledge graph and other things, and the BACnet part of it, and how you actually do things. And you may, by having a number of these standards, you may start to paint a picture of what becomes AI native or not. But I can't imagine an AI native stamp ever coming from anywhere.
You can't give it an IQ test, Anto.
It already passes the bars, so
there could be a score potentially, but a test might be, well, a score as a result of a series of evaluations. It makes sense. And again, there are some really straightforward things. I would say it's not rocket science, but it is.
And to clarify a little bit, to add to what you're saying, Rick, a true AI native building platform needs semantic relationships, machine understandable context, interoperable digital twins, and agent accessible knowledge graphs. So on your scoring idea, that certainly is measurable.
Right.
Yeah.
There's also levels, right? I mean, you obviously have, if if you take AI, if it's not AI native, then if you take AI out of it, it can't function. Yeah, that's the idealized scenario, but there's steps along the way. And some of it, from a maturity level, it's very basic. Can we read the data? It actually was an article that you posted, Ken. Is the data accessible? And that's where we are with a lot of the PAE RDF. And so, for example, in the PAE example, we actually sent the RDF file to other domains that didn't know anything about building and say, can you validate, is this a valid RDF? And they said, yes, we can, but we don't know what the rules are. But you can certainly read it, which means it's not only one validation check. There's steps along the way. And if you can't, if you say, I have a mobile device, but I don't have a phone number, then you really don't have a connection, for example, right? It's basic stuff. And beyond that, there's a lot of other things that you can automate and everything. So I think it's important to have this idealized scenario, but also say, this is the path to get there, because we can talk about idealized forever and not head down that way, but there's a lot of work to go along the way.
Yeah.
I think one goal we were wanting was just a word we could focus on. And as you can see, we've achieved our goal because we're having a great conversation. And I think that's what we want to do is we're struggling to try and define this. When you try and hand this off to the consultants, I mean, the only thing that ever took us out of the woods was we gave them a word called BACnet. They had no idea what it meant, but they stuck it in their specs and at least things moved ahead. And then later we came up with BACnet native, and we saw some advantages there, and that helped a lot too. We've got this AI thing floating around here. So if we have AI native, I think it just starts a better conversation. And I'm not so worried about, it's up to you whether you feel it's AI native or not, but there are rules, there are tests. And for all of our retrofit, AI native is probably not all that useful. We're probably, as we have done with the PAE building, it's a retrofit, and we're looking to probably just make it AI ready and do the best you can.
Nope. It's moving to be AI native. I'm sorry. So the retrofit is taking old systems and making them AI native, 100%.
But underneath, I think the ultimate goal is that we're moving forward, that we can actually design systems that are AI native from the get-go.
True.
Eventually, yeah.
The one of the reasons why I'm sort of pushing this and the sort of the concern is that I recall a few weeks back, I think it was Steve on Monday Live here, was talking about a meeting he had or a presentation he had with a group of people. It's quite a large group of people, but I remembered it to be like 70 plus kind of number. And he did a quick poll to see how many of them had used AI. And I think the number of hands that came up was like 3 out of that assembled mass, right? So most people in this industry not only don't know how to spell AI, they just don't have any experience with it. So nativity of something that you don't understand is really a problem for me, and it borders on dangerous sometimes. So this is caution. I love the term AI native because that's where we're going, but we have to be careful how we use it.
Yeah.
Did I get that right, Steve?
Yes, you got it right. It was a group of around 70 to 100 people, and the guest speaker was advocating for using AI in their business. All controls folks, so systems integrators, and they, only a handful of people.
So if you had in that same room, if you can take yourself back in that and talked about AI native,
now you've really lost them. Right.
Right. Yeah. So we have a gap that we have to address.
Right.
It's not to say we can't use it, but we have to be conscious of that.
Yeah.
Well, and that's with the help of AI, we will figure out how to tell that story. And Tracy ran the article through AI. I've done it as well to try and figure out how to explain it to a non-technical audience, and it comes back with some pretty pretty straightforward things to get people's heads around is that, technology where it is right now has basically been built for the era of web services and websites. Humans use technology through websites and through web servers and browsers. Guess who doesn't use browsers? Agents.
Right.
AI doesn't use a browser. So there's a whole new set of technologies that needs to be it's been invented. It needs to now become mainstream not for humans to use browsers to try and figure out how to use technology or to use email, but for agents to use technology. It's just fundamentally different. Not a difficult thing for people to kind of go, oh, well, that makes sense. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
That's where it gets complicated.
Yeah, and it is complicated. But Rick, if you think about, in the early days of DDC, communication networks were RS-45, right?
Yep.
And then pretty much initially all the RS-45 protocols, again, a generic term, were proprietary. And then, when Ethernet came along, again, a lot of the initial protocols were proprietary. And so we've been able to, at least as an industry, to define some standard protocols that everyone can agree upon, be it Modbus, BACnet, MQTT, and so on. Right. But at least we've been able to go from the word protocol to tell me what your protocol is, give it a name, right? And let's agree on at least a couple of different protocols that anybody can use and access. So now we have this new term, AI, or if you want, AI native. Okay. How do you nail it down? How do you describe your version of AI or AI native? How do we do that? Because we had no choice really but to get very specific about protocols because it was becoming a barrier to any kind of interoperability.
And it's interesting to hear you talk about that because it still is all evolving and a little bit of a moving target, right? We haven't settled on exact standards that are the underpinnings that make a platform AI native. I think about it in terms of our own journey. We knew for a long time this was coming. So as we selected protocols and hardware and so forth, we tried to select all the things that would make AI integration easy for us when the time came. But I'm sitting here wondering, okay, so we can freely and easily exchange data with AI now bidirectionally. But if you took the AI away, our system still basically functions. It wouldn't have some of its features, its capabilities, but it still controls temperature and turns lights on and off and so on and so forth. So, but it can't tell you which RTUs are, not working properly or score a location in terms of its functionality. It can't do some of that stuff without AI. So I would say we're an example of an evolving technology in that at some point in the future, the next gen of this will be much more AI native in terms of the way we're describing it. While at the same time, I'd say we're probably ahead of, or at least at pace with what everybody is doing out there in the industry who is looking at AI application in their systems. So there is going to be a bit of an evolutionary period, I think, for some of this stuff, right?
Right.
David.
I think one of the interesting stories or anecdotes we've all heard is a new BMS system is installed in a building and the chief engineer is like, show me where it is so I can turn it off. And, and it's the chief engineer who's been running the building well and BMS got added or whatever story you'd like to hear of that. But if there was an AI element that was overseeing the actual operation of a building, I'd absolutely want to be able to turn it off because it could make a mistake. And when we look at what AI native could be, I think it makes sense to think of AI as an additional capability to whatever user group we're talking about. And so if it's a facility manager who has to, manage the building, that's one thing, and they may be more intimately interactive with the tools and the AI interface, and also may need to turn that off in case of an emergency or some scenario that the AI can't, wasn't designed and couldn't handle or actually made things worse. But then there's the aspect of leveraging AI to improve the building operation, to improve the building efficiency, to improve or optimize any aspect of the automation. And so there's an AI layer, I would think would be a good word, where you have this AI ability to have an LLM and use natural language questions like, which thing is underperforming compared to the other thing, or however you want to look at it. But I think it's important that for something to be AI native, it has the data available to do all of these things. And it has, ideally, where appropriate, AI AI ideal data like turtle files or RDF, RDF databases and the like. And really, I think there's one key aspect of AI which we absolutely do not have, which is insight and being able to ask questions and get answers that it would be very hard for us to get an answer to without having a human do some analysis and get the data and figure out the question. That is undoubtedly something AI will be able to help us with, which we're struggling with now. But all of this, I guess my salient point here is that AI should be able to be turned off, and it should have data accessibility to do all of these things for all of these different user groups. But it needs to be able to be turned off, and it also needs to be able to provide insight where normal humans couldn't do that easily.
I like your definition better than AI's definition, because AI's definition is AI natives, you don't need humans. And you're saying, no, that's not true, which is correct, right? Depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
So it's the trust part, and how do we put the guardrails and all that kind of stuff. But obviously some things can be automated, but we need to be part of that conversation. Otherwise, it's never going to get to that ideal HAL state. It's going to take over the spaceship and we're good to go.
Native means it is capable.
Capable, yeah.
AI capable.
I don't think it's either or though, either, right? I mean, if you
yes, it can absolutely be an and too.
Yeah, they could be humans in the loop in an AI native application, like manually turning lights on and off or changing temperatures. Those are all human actions, and they'd be part of that overall application. So I don't think they're mutually exclusive, humans and AI, in terms of a definition for AI native necessarily.
And I can say from working and living in spaces where absolutely everything was automated, I actually missed doing some of the things myself, and went back to me having to do things. So I actually felt connected in a way.
AI could send you a message and ask you, what would you like the temperature to be, Mr. Wilts?
Yeah. And I'd be like, don't bother me right now. Can't you see I'm busy?
Exactly.
Jim, what's your thoughts on all of this? You've been quiet so far on this call.
I'm sorry I missed the prep call, but I think that I'm generally in line with what everyone else said. I think that when Steve asked, can things be tested? I think if they reach a certain level of maturity and there's a demand for that to happen, the current functions in the market can take over and do that testing. I think that I don't understand enough about AI myself to see where this is going and how fast. And I think that things are changing at such a rate that I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm ready to weigh in with definitions yet. I think it's fine that everyone's starting to talk about them, but a lot of pieces moving around the chessboard right now as to what the end state will be.
Okay, I wrote an article here, which I've actually posted in the chat, understanding the AI maturity spectrum. And I think right now we're balancing all three levels of that. There's the first, which is AI enabled, and AI ready, middle ground, and AI native. And it basically puts down the requirements of each of those. Now, granted, that was written by AI, Gemini in particular, but I think it does a reasonable job. And the other thing is I think we're going to, for the next foreseeable years, we're going to have to work with AI able, things that we can just poke at and change. AI ready, which I still think is your PAE thing, because you're not changing the bottom, you're changing only the top. So all you're doing is making it AI ready. And I think that's going to be a lot of our retrofits is going to fall into that category. And then AI native is, in my mind, is sort of airy-fairy stuff for the future for us to basically, how far can we push this and how far can we, it's basically, if we look at it for cars, AI enabled, we had all kinds of features that were added. Then we had, basically autopilot with the AI ready. AI native is basically like robotaxi, where the whole process works and it doesn't really involve any humans. So that's kind of, it's worthwhile to maybe just take a quick read of that, what's going on.
Can you re-put the link in chat?
Repost it? Okay.
Yeah, please, because there's quite a lot of links, just so people can get the zoom right into it.
Okay, I'll do that.
So are we ready for AI native, which is the question of this week? Because it's all about readiness. So
to me, there's still a there's an understanding of what Vint Cerf means by AI native it is not at all about having most of what we've been talking about.
Do you mean emotionally ready, spiritually ready?
I'm not saying ready. I said
cognitively ready.
What Vint is talking about is a specific technology capability that moves beyond being browser centric or being cloud centric or being IP centric to being a completely different kind of technology architecture. Worth a read, because it is fascinating. And again, the point it being that the new architectures are not oriented around browsers or humans. Guess what also didn't use a browser? Pneumatics didn't use a browser. Neither does DDC. The inputs and the outputs. The last time there was a human involved in most DDC systems was when the workstation was programmed. I mean, yeah, sure, there's overrides and stuff, but DDC systems that is not even an IP native technology. So worth a read for the Vint Cerf is the Vint Cerf continuum article. Yes, it is. It's a technology read, but we're in the technology business. We should understand the difference between IP native, cloud native, computing native, and AI native. And we're skipping. This is a really cool thing, is that like at the PAE building, we're skipping past cloud native, for instance, or we're going straight to AI native. And
But
it's worth
they're cumulative, right? Because
right.
cloud native requires you to be IP native, and AI native requires you to be cloud native.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's a mouthful, but again, we're in the technology business. AI can help us with some of the tutorials on how to explain some of what we're talking about. But it may require us to get a little bit in the weeds. The other thing is that when we talked about at the beginning of the program, the digital building profiles that David Wilts is working on. Digital building profiles will help to reveal the systems that are anywhere near cloud native capable. And that's one of the secret little things that we've been trying to launch is that digital building profiles inventory.
Can you or David explain that? Because that's quite a statement.
Well, in the process of evaluating a building, the digital systems that are in a building or the systems that are in a building that could be digital or should be digital, part of that process of identifying the system, whether it's a fire alarm system, an elevator system, a battery system, whatever it will be identifying the system and then identifying some of the key details of its digital capability. And does it have the ability to interact with the internet? Is it connectable? I mean, there will be what is the digital, or what is the serialization is the word that David has taught us. What is the serialization of the data that is used for that system? And that'll include maintenance management systems, capital planning systems, work order systems, and the identification of all those different systems in a particular building will then create an inventory of not just the system, but also its digital capability. And that's it's kind of just that simple. Then there will be okay, this system has this digital capability. To upgrade it to be cloud native, to participate in a cloud native architecture would require this additional upgrade. And what we're planning with the PAE engineering is like taking the lead is that they will help do the digital building assessments, and that they will then help put together the prescriptions for how to go from your systems being status quo to being cloud native.
David, do you want to add to that? You're muted.
Yes, just for the fact that to have impactful AI insights about your building, it's not just about systems that consume utilities and have data. You need to know about the building itself and the wall assemblies, the ceiling assemblies, the door assemblies, and there's a ton of data that should be accessible to AI to help you manage a building in a new way. And so part of the inventory will also be, is any of that data available in, what are now Revit or IHC or any kind of format IFC. And then I'm thinking International House of Pancakes, which is IHP. But we need to look at data that is currently static and trapped in documentation and making that available, as well as the energy consumption, occupancy, utilization, blah, 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 blah.
Okay. That's good. That's great. So I think we need to start to wrap. Ken, maybe I can ask you to just comment on whether we've actually fully explored the readiness of AI native on this call.
Well, I don't think we will ever explore the breadth and width of it, but it got us talking about it, which I think was our goal. our goal was to want to talk about this. The other thing that's running around in my mind now is this whole getting things close to whatever we call AI native allows us to connect at another level. And we all grew up with first wiring standards, and then we moved to, stock software standards like BACnet and LON, and then we moved to web formats to move all of this stuff back and forth. And now I think what I'm seeing is that we have another opportunity to actually exchange data at an AI level. And that kind of excites me, because that could solve a whole bunch of interconnection and interoperability problems with systems we never imagined we would ever interface with, I think is the big thing there too. And I think that fits into the C4SB camp really well as all of these pieces are coming together. And I think that's why AI native needs to have a working group to discuss what can and can't be done in the future.
Okay, thank you very much, Ken. And everyone else, thank you. It's been a good conversation. We'll get the video up, and the analysis on automated buildings will follow after that over the next couple of days. So we shall continue this theme for the rest of this month with another conversation next week about readiness. Readiness of what? We're not sure yet. We'll get to that on Wednesday. So hope you all have a great week, and see you around. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
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 Bye-bye.